Welcome back to our series. I'm Travis Brashear with Lockton out of our Houston office. We're talking about people solutions. And as I've said multiple times, you're probably tired of hearing it at this point, we're introducing you to people behind the scenes at Lockton, but we're also introducing you to concepts, things that we're working on, and some of the tools and resources that we use to help our clients in this space. So we're going to talk today, we'll call it sort of the voice of the people, for lack of a better term, but we're honored to have Raji Kumar with us out of our Dallas office. And Raji, we're gonna let you tell us about what we're doing to help our clients sort of hear the voice of their employees, and then what do we do once we have that information? So let's start though with, tell us about yourself, tell us about your tenure at Lockton, your history in the industry. So
yeah, absolutely.
Who are you, Raji, and how'd you get here?
Yeah, no, thank you for having me here today. I'm so thankful to be part of this engagement and really express what we go through from our side internally, but helping clients, and also give context to other people who are interested in to be part of this space. So myself, Raji Kumar, and I actually come from healthcare background.
Okay.
In the industry, insurance industry is fairly new, but having come from a startup world and then the healthcare technology space, and basically I'm a researcher and a scientist by training.
Okay.
So as that can tell you, I deal with a lot of data.
Okay.
So it's not just data, but it's experiments. You work on a hypothesis and you come up with the design of experiments to prove or disprove your hypothesis, which means a lot of statistical work that goes behind the screen and logical work, in quite the level of aptitude that you'll need to be very meticulous in designing your experiments.
Okay.
So that kind of gave me an insight or interest in the world of how do you connect dots. It's as simple as that. Every information around you is a dot, basically. And it's a dot with context if you put it in the right space and time. And how do you connect the dots? And it really comes down to that. So that's what got me into the whole space of data eventually. And I come from operations background, so that resulted in business intelligence.
Okay.
So which means, how do you run your business? How do you position your business to be the cutting edge leading technology firm, if that's what the intent or the vision is of the company. And you can't do that if you don't have data about the health of your company or your business. And part of that, I got exposed into the human resource world, where I then eventually became responsible for identifying the best benefits that we can put in front of our employees. And so as a result, that you just can't make up information if you don't hear what your employees need. And back then, it was definitely a smaller startups. That's where my expertise lies in.
Okay.
Before coming to Lockton. So that chat or that feedback session was pretty straightforward. You just go and ask your employees, hey, what do you need?
Pretty simple when there's only
Yes.
5 of you, right?
Yeah, and tell me what you would like, and we'll see if we can figure this out.
Right.
And I think that's where the interest really started, because to me, the dots and the context in the space and time, there's a reason behind all of those information is patterned in a similar way. That's what human needs are. Basically, everybody would like their voice to be heard in different manner, right? And so that eventually was a natural progress for me to, jump into this world of Lockton. And I've been with Lockton less than 2 years now, but I absolutely love the place to be part of, and what we stand for, and the direction that we're moving forward. Because bottom line is, you not only help yourself, but you help your clients.
Yeah.
That to me is the secret mantra that speaks to me, that motivates me to get out of the bed every single day. Is have you helped one person other than yourself? Is a question I ask myself every day.
That's your why.
Yes,
Yeah.
Before I go to bed. So thinking about it, and through Lockton, I think we help so many lives, not just impacting clients, but their employees, frankly, their families.
Yep.
And you touch so many lives through simple decisions that we make, or simple strategies that we come up with, innovative ideas.
Yeah.
And all of that starts with at some place, with some information.
Yep.
And that's where I come into the picture, is giving you that baseline information on what your client, or frankly their clients, which is their employees, they need and are looking for.
Okay.
And people are eager to voice their opinion. It's a natural instinct as humans to be able to share experience and feedback.
We're getting really good at that in the United States these days. Maybe too
Yes.
good at it, right? Yeah.
I think it's every human's right to be able to share their experience and voice their opinions, and of course within reason, right?
Right.
You can't have all the bells and whistles under the sun. That's unreasonable. But what you can is express your thought in a more meaningful way, in a more cohesive manner, so that your feedback is being heard. And when it's heard, it's so much powerful. Imagine your client or your employer, responds to what your opinions are. That's just such a powerful way to connect with your employees.
Yeah.
What better way to keep them engaged when you tell them, I hear you.
Right.
Right. And that's part of my job in my role here, where I lead our employee research and analytics practice, is to listen to your employees.
So say that again.
Yeah.
Employee research and analytics practice.
Correct.
And so that's embedded into what we'll call people solutions, but
Correct.
what has been historically our benefits business.
Yeah.
How many people do we have sort of running around doing sort of this data analysis work? Is this 2 of you or 10 of you? I mean, what's that look like?
So it's a part of a broader team called employee engagement.
Okay.
Of course, every employer would want something facing internally, but imagine you have a consultant on such powerful capabilities to help guide you and consult with you, to get you in the right direction.
Right.
So our team is probably as big as 35, 40 people
Okay,
that
wow.
has a variety of different consultants and subject matter experts,
Okay.
but specifically analysts, that is a much smaller team,
Right.
more lean, but they are much more focused on people analytics. That's
Okay.
their primary role. Yeah.
All right. So to get us down the path of the, because I want to talk about, because I find this really fascinating, the employee sentiment analysis
Right.
is we're looking at public information,
Yeah.
comments that have been made on the internet, if that's the right way to say it, right, on specific sites. You have to have a certain number of people to make that statistically valid to a degree, or have enough comments. But we're literally, what your team is doing is looking at these sites and finding comments about how employees think or feel about their employer. Is that a fair way to say what this is?
Absolutely,
Yeah.
yes. So think of this as an unsolicited way of getting feedback, where your employees are providing their experience and thought process and commentary on online platforms, many social media platforms that are non-private, that are more targeted towards talent acquisition or just in general employee-employer experience in that engagement, platforms. And LinkedIn is a great example for that.
Yeah.
Somebody with a personal experience and has had a phenomenal experience with their employer and would like to leave a comment online and say, hey, my employer is awesome.
Yeah.
And the benefits they provide is just top notch, and they truly care about their employees. They're passionate about bringing people together, and that's the kind of feedback. And it's not always so well thought out and praised online, but there are some critical commentary that we come across. I mean, it is publicly available.
Right.
There is no private information that's being sourced. Everything that that we can read and see, so can a potential employee for that employer is also reading.
Right.
And for lack of better word, and judging if that's the right fit for them or not.
Yeah.
So what we are trying to do is consolidate all of that, because imagine if you are not just a smaller firm or a larger firm, unless you have some dedicated bandwidth and a resource to be able to spend time looking into it,
Right.
they have us to do that background for them.
Like, well,
So,
you
yes.
don't need this capability.
Exactly.
We can do it for you.
Yeah.
Before-
So, and we look through, over a period of time, and fluctuations might vary. They might have gone through a lot of, I would say, transformation over time. Every business goes through that. I mean, I think post-pandemic, most businesses have gone through some level of transformation.
Right.
So we keep our analysis relevant to the time frame that is more appropriate for that conversation.
the last couple of years.
Yes,
Right.
yeah.
And talk about the categories a little bit, because I find this sort of fascinating. Like when we talk about this, we're talking about people.
Yes.
It's related to HR and benefits and the way that they think about it. But what are sort of the 4 or 5 categories that we're sort of measuring as we go here?
Yeah. So I think it really comes down to relevance of the type of engagement that we are having with our clients. Now, let's say they are our primary benefits related client, then the topic of conversation is so different. You want to make sure that, are their employees feeling satisfied with the benefits that's being received?
Right.
Are they being expressive about their concerns? What is not meeting their expectations?
Right.
So that we can try and reduce that gap if there is enough room.
Pay time off, or
Yes.
pay, or
Exactly.
lack of bonuses,
Yes.
or forced to work overtime. Those are the type of comments.
Those are the
that
type
we
of
get.
comments, yes.
Yeah.
But for clients that are simply looking to get ancillary services and employee engagement, then we look at areas such as workplace stress, culture, diversity. Some people might feel so strongly about diversity as an example, which is such a hot topic that most employers are trying to get into the space, trying to get ahead of the curve to make sure that their employees feel safe mentally and physically in the workplace. But if it's benefits related, we do look at paid time off, vacation as an example. Family leave oftentimes comes up as a big topic.
Yeah.
Compensation, for sure. Those are some of the basics we look at, benefits and compensation.
Right.
But communication is definitely a topic that comes up quite frequently too, because it can be looked at through different lenses. One, the level of communication from upper management trickling down to every level of employee,
Right.
and the level of communication that interpersonal communications or managerial communications.
Right.
So those are all hot areas that we do look at and provide areas of opportunity.
Okay.
Here's an area of opportunity that you as a client, should you choose to look into, can absolutely work on those things, and that's where Lockton is here to help you.
Right.
We are not telling you, hey, here are the areas that you need to work on and just leaving you out in the blind,
Right.
but rather we are giving you the strategy to say, hey, here are some low-hanging fruits, let's tackle this if you think this is the right time.
Yeah, and like let HR go back to the executive team and say, you may think you have a well thought out strategy, but it's not working its way down
Correct.
to the employee population.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, bottom line comes down to employer's brand.
Right.
They might be doing wonderful things internally, but if it's not getting communicated properly, the outside world or through social media, which is a big component of today's world, how people view things,
Right.
you don't want that skewed. You want an accurate picture of who you are being represented online and your brand.
And your employees are actually sort of the front line for that.
Yes.
If they don't know,
Exactly.
then you're clearly, your clients or
Yeah.
your customers don't know. Talk a little bit about one of the fascinating things I think about it is that when we do this for our client, we also look at their competitors. We blind the information, right? So they don't know exactly, which competitor, but they get rated in these categories, around culture, et cetera, relative to their peers, right?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, who doesn't love to see a good competition out in the space, to see, hey, how am I doing is great, but how is my competitors doing out there? That's equally, I think, is relevant for the context to paint a bigger picture.
Right.
Because, today, measuring success is always yardstick in comparison with something else.
Okay.
So either you have a finish line that you're comparing to, or you have a co-race, a runner in the same race that you're comparing yourself to. Am I on the same pace or not? But of course, we blind those information to, for protection purposes. And online social media, at the bottom line, is simple user experiences. You rate things. If you go and have a good dinner out, night out at a wonderful restaurant,
5-star. Right?
5-star rating,
Right.
or 4-star rating, right? Bottom line, it comes down to that. And it's no different than applying that similar concept to an employer brand online, which is what people tend to judge you about,
Okay.
right? I mean, I myself have been in a spot where, when I'm looking at, brands, company brands, I do tend to look at what is their star rating. And that their past or current employees is truly who's been there, part of that experience, their
Right.
culture is going online and commenting about or rating them against. So, culture is a good component there, workplace and work-life balance. Diversity is a big topic.
Yeah.
Compensation and benefits is, of course, by default.
You mean people are vocal about that?
Yeah, and they do talk about, they do rank their management team
we
or
see a
senior
lot of that,
leadership
right?
team. Yes,
Yeah,
yeah.
yeah.
And overall rating, which I think is part of the way some of these platforms, their algorithm operates. It takes years of information into account, plus also hardcore rating that the employees put in.
Well, let me ask sort of the CHRO, Chief People Officer question. How effective is this tool? What would you use it for? Is this directional? Is it corroborating? Is it in place of doing surveys? Like, let's just focus on this employee sentiment analysis tool. How would you put it in play? What would you do with the information?
This is basically a starting point, as we call it. It helps you identify blind spots, things that you might not be aware of, how your brand is being showcased online in social media, as an example. So you might be doing wonderful, strategy and great work internally, but if it's truly not reflecting online, so it either proves or disproves what you've been trying to put in front of your employees. Basically, that's the bottom line. And it's truly directional. We don't tell them anything where this is concrete, this is done deal, you cannot reverse it. That's not at all the type of conversation. I mean, most people get intrigued by the fact that, how did we miss that? How do we rectify this? What can we do that will positively bring out all the good things that we provide for our employees, right? Now, that's where I see the success of this tool, is just truly identifying those blind spots. And the follow-on step might be as simple as doing a survey. Right? How do we connect today's reality to your strategy and give you meaningful information with backed up with data? Yeah. And bottom line, it really comes down to that information. Yeah. You have your current pool of cohort of employees, and what has been said online is a good mix of past and current employees. So obviously, sentiment changes over time. And can we marry up the data by conducting either a focus group or a survey, or what does that next step look like? Yeah. And that's a conversation that we usually have.
Yeah, because if you're in that seat, you don't want to overstay your welcome here with people, right? You get so many bites at the apple to do a really meaningful survey, and if you're just doing it for the sake of saying you did it, you may be wasting your time and not even getting the results that you're looking for. Absolutely. But in this case, it might expose something that is worth asking about, right? You may say, okay, well, everything seems fine, or maybe like, we really need to hone in on this. There's too much noise in the system around a particular topic.
Absolutely. So let me share a success story that we have had, where we did an employee sentiment analysis on a company, a group of companies, and the hot topic that we figured out was communication and paid time off. Those rose to the top, amongst other factors that we do look at, but those are two areas that their HR team, it's a fairly mid-sized team, and they've been sporadically hearing like water cooler talks and feedbacks, and just questions around, how do I take my family leave, or how do I go through a parental leave, as an example. So to sort of give them the full picture, they needed information with data to go in front of their leadership team and say, could we look at a different strategy? Or we may probably need a third-party help, as an example, to come in and help us to structure this in a way that is more appropriate and more easy to understand to our employees.
Right.
And that resulted in a survey where we knew exactly which areas to target, thanks to the ESA that we had done on the brand prior. Yeah. And there was no surprise in the data, because it absolutely corroborated what we had seen. But now they have, with statistical validity, to take in front of their leadership team, and of course we help them model the dollar amounts that would go with it too.
Right.
Now they have not just the data, but futuristic planning. Here's what the budget would look like if we wanted to make these changes, and here's what the ROI would look like if we had made these changes. This is what our advantages of implementing them is going to look like. Yeah. And that was an easy enough conversation for them to have, because we armed them with enough information to go
just
have that.
Having the data makes you credible, right? Yeah.
But the starting point really, we wouldn't have gone through that exercise if we hadn't done an ESA. That really opened up that blind spot when they've been, loading all their emails and their intranet and all the places with information, but it truly wasn't getting to the employees how the way they intended for them to, get it.
It's a great example. You and I sort of uncovered this recently as well, and I hadn't thought about this in the past, but it's sort of in the M&A world. this information is out there, and if you've got private equity groups out there looking to make major investments,
Yeah.
you can now we can show you a report on like what are you buying, like
Right.
what is what you think about the company actually what employees are saying about it.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's more of a statement than a question, but that's been an interesting observation that this information is out there, and before you write a meaningful check, we can help you verify and corroborate what
Yeah.
employees are saying about
Or at
the
least
company.
have a conversation about it.
Yeah.
By no means, if the data doesn't come in the favor of their expectation, there is no repercussions that come with it saying that, hey, don't buy the company. That's not the intent.
Right.
But the intent is maybe there is a room for honest conversation to have. Hey, where can we help? We see that as an area of opportunity where we could be improving things on. What can we do to help?
Well, back to your blind spots,
Yeah.
like just identify the blind spot,
Pretty much.
and mostly you look at it as there's real opportunity for upside, right? In
Right.
this particular case, but you have to know where to aim,
Yeah.
and so going into that conversation, knowing more about the prospective client or the buyer in this case.
Knowledge is power.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, it's a fascinating topic. I really like having the conversation, which just starts off with what's your employee value proposition.
Right.
Is that making its way down? Before we start talking about changing deductibles and copays, do we really know what people really value? And so this is a great way to begin.
Yeah.
I don't want to put you in the hot seat, but is there anything else sort of coming? I mean, in your data analytics world, this is a great tool, but is there anything else that the crowd, the audience, should know about that's sort of coming down the pike, or maybe that we're already delivering?
Yeah, I mean, there's always something new that's cooking, as I like to call it. Innovation is you can't put the lid on it, right?
Right.
Evolution happens when you innovate and move forward. We are looking into different avenues beyond employee voice. Is how do we give back to them? How do we improve their experience with their employers?
Right.
I mean, recent report shows that quiet quitters, the percentage continues to increase.
Yeah.
They say on an average,
Quiet quitters is what
yes,
you said, right?
Yeah. And on an average, 50% of an employee who is currently employed is actively or passively looking for another job.
Right.
So how do we improve their experience and try to reduce that percentage of people who are actively or passively looking for a job when they actually have a job, right? I mean, either they are not engaged with their employer, or there's behind the scenes there's other reasons that either the employer is not able to tap into, or just in general the industry is not being aware of. How do we reduce that gap?
Right.
So from an innovation standpoint, we are looking into avenues. How can we not only listen to them, but how do we help deliver that back to them? How do we connect back to them? That's the whole mantra of the employee engagement team that we work towards, is listen, deliver, and connect, right? And listen while it comes first. It doesn't end, it only starts the cycle.
Right.
It doesn't end there. So you got, it ends when you communicate back to them, when you deliver it back to them.
Yeah, you don't get to your original why until
Right.
you can actually help a client, a company improve the outcome for employees, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
And make their lives better, which is a big part of why a lot of us are here and in this industry to begin with. Yeah. Well, I'm always fascinated at the talented people behind the scenes, which is part of why I wanted to do this series so badly, and matching up the talent with the actual analysis itself and the data, is sort of where that magic is. And so thanks so much for sharing it with us and for what you do with us or for us every day. Really appreciate you being here. If you're listening online or watching this video and you're interested in the employee sentiment analysis or finding more about what employees are saying about your company out there, now you can reach out to Raji or
Absolutely.
I, and we can help you with that. So
Yeah.
thanks for joining, and we'll see you in the next episode.